came the Missouri Compromise, which officially solidified the Northern and Southern American divide. Die-dee-die. Came the Stronger Fugitive Slave Act, which meant even freed slaves had to go back. They would be captured just based on the fact they were black. It was a racist time in the American South. In fact, a racist time throughout the country. But that's not really the point of what I'm talking about. The argument I'm trying to make is that this divide led to the Civil War. While we're on the topic of division, let's talk about the Dred Scott decision. Republicans thought it would help, but it actually hurt their cause. Their plan had flaws. While we're on the topic of Republicans, do you know much about that party's formation? Did you know it was formed to support abolition? Now let's go way back to the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which mandated popular sovereignty, which the Republicans opposed because, as everyone knows, they were against slavery. They wanted the country to be free.
But that must be when the North and South divide ends, right?
Wrong, little boy. You see, if the Missouri Compromise, the strengthening of the Fugitive Slave Act, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, the formation of the Republican Party, and the Dred Scott decision had not divided the country enough, along came the crisis of 1857. In 1857, widespread inflation and speculation caused an economic panic. This panic barely affected the South. You see, the South was still focused on cotton. However, it hit the North hard. With the South prosperous and the North struggling, the divide widened. Now it's time for the presidential race. In his own party, Lincoln beat Salmon P. Chase. But before we go there, we'll mention Stephen A. Douglas. He's the one who orchestrated the separation of Nebraska and Kansas. This led to our next event, which is known as Bleeding Kansas. As a result of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, Kansas became a pro-slavery state. Pro-slavery supporters took this as an endorsement and attacked abolitionists. There were gangs from both sides, actually, and they roamed around killing people. In the end, over 200 people died. The Kansas-Nebraska Act also split the Democratic Party, which is part of what leads to our next event. For our next event, Lincoln becomes the president. You see, Lincoln became president even though he didn't have a majority vote, because the rest of the country was split Democrat. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the end of our show. Our next event is the secession of South Carolina. The secession of a state had to be what would lead to the Civil War, right? Nope. Because after that, it wasn't just the secession of a state. It was the secession of all Southern states.